There's a moment when everything you've worked for stops feeling like achievement and starts feeling like suffocation. For Mason Carter, a 17-year-old high school senior from Portland, Oregon, that moment came at 2:45 on a Tuesday afternoon in March 2024, when he sat at his desk staring at a college acceptance letter from Stanford University, his dream school, the place he'd spent 3 years destroying himself to get into. And all he could think was, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Real question is, how did a bright kid who loved learning become so terrified of failing that his body forced him to stop? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Let me take you back 4 years to where this began. September 2020, freshman year at Lincoln High School. Mason walked through those doors as a nervous 14-year-old, excited about high school but not particularly ambitious beyond wanting to do well. His parents, Jennifer and Robert Carter, were supportive but not pushy. They wanted him to be happy. The pressure came from somewhere else. It came from Mason himself, from a moment so small he didn't recognize its significance. First semester, Mason brought home straight A's. Nothing spectacular, just solid work in regular classes. But that evening, his mom made his favorite dinner to celebrate. His dad told him how proud he was. And sitting at that dinner table, eating lasagna, something shifted in Mason's brain. He felt valued in a way he hadn't before. Success equals approval equals worth. Without realizing it, Mason had started building his own prison. By sophomore year, he wasn't just doing well anymore. He was obsessed. He joined academic decathlon. He took 3 AP classes when his counselor suggested 1 or 2. He started waking up at 5:30 every morning because the idea of being unprepared made his stomach hurt. His friends would text him to hang out. Sorry, got homework. Can't, studying for the SAT. It's 3 months away. I know, but I want to be ready. The invitations stopped coming. Mason told himself it didn't matter. Late at night, alone with textbooks spread across his desk, a different voice whispered, "What if you're not good enough? What if everything falls apart?" Junior year hit like a freight train. This was the year that mattered, everyone told him. The year colleges would scrutinize. Mason's schedule looked like punishment. AP Chemistry, AP U.S. History, AP English Language, Honors Pre-Calculus, Spanish 3, plus leadership roles in 3 clubs. His days started at 5:30 a.m. and didn't end until past midnight. His body started sending signals. Headaches that wouldn't quit, stomach pains that made him skip lunch, constant tightness in his chest. He'd be in class and suddenly the room would feel too small, too bright. His vision would blur. His heart would race. He'd excuse himself to the bathroom, splash cold water on his face, grip the sink and tell himself to breathe, just breathe, get it together. His mother noticed he'd lost weight. His father noticed the dark circles. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, just busy. But Mason wasn't fine. In November, he got a B+ on an AP chemistry exam. Not a bad grade, but for Mason, it was catastrophic. His perfect GPA was gone. Stanford wouldn't want him now. He'd ruined everything. He sat in his car in the school parking lot for 40 minutes, unable to drive home, unable to face his parents, the shame burning through his chest. By March, Mason had stopped feeling anything. The anxiety was constant, but underneath was just emptiness. He'd wake up and force himself through a checklist. Get out of bed, shower, eat, go to school. He wasn't living, he was performing. And nobody noticed because on the outside, Mason was still Mason, still getting A's, still showing up, still smiling when he was supposed to. The collapse came on a Wednesday in April, during AP English class. They were writing an in-class essay about resilience in literature. Mason stared at the blank page. His mind was completely empty. The words wouldn't come. He tried to write something, anything, but his hand wouldn't move. His chest started to tighten. His breath quickened. He looked around and everyone else was writing, pencils moving, faces calm. Why couldn't he do this? What was wrong with him? The room started to spin. He stood up, mumbled something about the bathroom, and stumbled into the hallway. He made it 3 steps before his legs gave out. Mason woke up in the nurse's office with his mother holding his hand and a paramedic checking his vitals. His first thought wasn't concern for his health. It was, did I miss the essay deadline? That tells you everything about where his mind was. The hospital ran every test: blood work, EKG, CT scan, neurological exam. Everything came back normal. Physically, 17-year-old Mason Carter was perfectly healthy, but his body had just forced a shutdown because his mind had been running on pure terror for too long. A hospital psychologist, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, sat down with Mason that afternoon. Mason, I've reviewed your tests. There's nothing physically wrong with you, but I think your body is trying to tell you something. When was the last time you felt relaxed? Mason couldn't remember. When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to, not because it would look good on a resume? He couldn't answer. When was the last time you felt okay with making a mistake? Never, Mason said quietly. I can't make mistakes. Why not? Because if I make mistakes, I'm not good enough. And if I'm not good enough, then what's the point of me? Dr. Mitchell leaned forward. Mason, what you're experiencing is called academic burnout. Your body didn't fail you today. Your body was trying to protect you. It was trying to make you stop before something worse happened. Over the next hour, Dr. Mitchell asked questions nobody had asked before. Who are you trying to please? Everyone? Myself? I don't know. What do you think would happen if you got a B? People would be disappointed. Have your parents ever said they'd be disappointed? No. Then why do you believe it? Because if I'm not the smart kid, then who am I? There it was. Mason's entire identity, his entire sense of worth was tied to achievement. Without perfect grades, he believed he was nothing. Dr. Mitchell explained that Mason had been living in chronic stress for years. His nervous system had been in fight or flight mode so long it forced a shutdown. The collapse wasn't weakness, it was his mind's emergency brake. Mason spent 3 days in the hospital. His parents sat with him, and they had the hardest conversation they'd ever had. His mother cried, I had no idea you were feeling this way. Why didn't you tell us? I didn't want to disappoint you. His father's voice was thick with emotion. Son, we have never loved you because of your grades. We love you because you're our son. That's it. Mason returned home with a referral to a therapist and anti-anxiety medication. The first week, he didn't go to school. His parents arranged medical leave, which meant missing finals, missing assignments, probably dropping his GPA. The old Mason would have panicked, but the new Mason felt something different. Relief. His therapist, Dr. James Brennan, gave him an assignment that sounded absurd. I want you to spend this week doing absolutely nothing productive. Don't study, don't plan, just exist. It was harder than Mason expected, but slowly something shifted. The constant tightness in his chest loosened. He slept past 7 a.m. and didn't feel guilty. He went an entire morning without thinking about college. It wasn't happiness yet. It was the absence of constant terror. It was the beginning of peace. When Mason returned to school in May, he'd made a decision that terrified him, but felt necessary. He was done chasing perfection. He was done measuring his worth by his GPA. He started saying no. When his teacher asked if he wanted to make up the missed essay, he said, "No, thank you." When his debate coach asked about state finals, he said, "I need to step back." When friends invited him out, he said, "Yes." The hardest part wasn't letting go of perfection. It was letting go of the identity he'd built around it. For 4 years, Mason had been the smart kid, the accomplished kid. Without that, who was he? Dr. Brennan helped to untangle the beliefs he'd internalized, the belief that love was conditional, that his value was tied to productivity, that rest was laziness and mistakes were catastrophic. In therapy, Dr. Brennan asked him something that stopped Mason cold. If you could talk to yourself as a freshman, what would you say? Mason thought for a long time. I'd tell him the A's don't matter as much as he thinks, that being perfect isn't possible, that it's okay to fail, that he's enough just as he is. So why don't you believe that now? I'm trying to, Mason said, but the voice that tells me I'm not enough has been louder for longer.
Mason had made peace with something that would have horrified him a year earlier. His GPA had dropped to 3.7. He'd withdrawn from 2 AP classes, and Stanford was no longer on the table, at least not immediately. He deferred his acceptance for a year to take a gap year, to figure out who he was outside of academics. His parents supported it, though he saw the worry in their eyes. Are you sure about this? I'm sure, Mason said. For the first time in 4 years, I'm actually sure. 6 months into his gap year, Mason realized something. He wanted to go back to school, but not to prove anything. He wanted to study psychology. He wanted to understand what had happened to him, and maybe help other kids before they reached his breaking point. When Mason finally started at Stanford in fall 2024, everything was different. He took 4 classes instead of 6. He joined 1 club because he enjoyed it. And when he got his first B in a college course, he felt old panic, but then breathed through it. It's just a grade. It doesn't define me. I'm more than this. By sophomore year, Mason had started volunteering with peer counseling on campus. He wrote an essay about his burnout experience that went viral. Hundreds of students reached out saying, "Me too. I thought I was the only one." Mason was determined to break that silence. Here's what Mason learned, what he wishes someone had told him at 14. Your value as a human being is not determined by your GPA. It's not determined by which college accepts you or how many leadership positions you hold. Those things might open doors, but they don't make you worthy of love or belonging. You already have that. You were born with that. The pressure you feel, the voice that says you must be perfect, that voice is lying. You don't have to carry that weight. You don't have to sacrifice your mental health for achievements that won't matter as much as you think. And if you're at the breaking point right now, if you recognize yourself in Mason's story, know this. Asking for help is not weakness. Taking time to recover is not giving up. Choosing yourself over expectations is not failure. It's the bravest thing you can do. Mason didn't erase his shadow. He learned to walk beside it instead of letting it lead. He learned that ambition and self-care aren't opposites. They're partners. So let me ask you, what shadow have you been carrying? What weight are you holding that isn't yours? What would happen if you put it down? Have you ever felt like Mason? Have you ever pushed yourself so hard you forgot why you were pushing? Share your story in the comments. You never know who needs to hear they're not alone. If this resonated with you, subscribe. We tell real stories about real struggles. Because the more we talk about these things, the less power they have. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself. You're worth it.